is correct. Basically the general themes that we've heard are correct, which is that she's not, this is not a thing that's going to keep her out. I would expect Caitlin Clark to be in the lineup for the game on Friday. Let me put it that way. I would expect her to be in the lineup for the game on Friday. I think it is more about being cautious, more about her general ramp up, more about how she feels and how she deals with her own body after the scares of last year. With that said, anytime you've got a back issue going on and,
Watch that carefully. The head coach of the Indiana Fever just contradicted herself on camera in less than 30 seconds. She's healthy, we're not managing anything, immediately followed by, this is just a back issue, we want to give time to be ready. So which is it? Because you can't have it both ways. And that contradiction right there is exactly why this situation has spiraled into a full-blown controversy that now has the WNBA league office involved. Because when you can't keep your story straight about your biggest star's health status, people start asking questions. And those questions lead to investigations.
So the news comes out like just over 90 minutes before tip-off, which is pretty sudden. And obviously when you tie it into the fact that Caitlin Clark had, the back issue in the opener. I mean, I was the one that asked her about it in the press conference, why she was going back to the locker room. She said she was getting her back aligned. That was always something to put a pin in. I said, it is part of managing an athlete, but anytime the back comes up, it's of some concern. Then you get this status report, no injuries, status update. Caitlin Clark back is out today, which, leads for people to wonder.
90 minutes before tip-off against Portland, that's when fans found out Caitlin Clark wouldn't play. Not the night before, not that morning, 90 minutes before the game started. Now here's what makes that timeline significant. According to WNBA rules, teams must submit their injury report by 5 p.m. the night before a game, in the time zone where that game is being played. Stephanie White admitted Clark didn't practice the day before because of back issues. She was getting treatment instead of participating in team practice. That means the Fever knew at least 24 hours in advance that their franchise player had a problem serious enough to keep her off the court. But they never added her to the injury report. They never notified the league. They waited until an hour and a half before game time to announce she was out.
Sort of like, will she or won't she? The real problem there was Clark was fighting to get back on the court last year. They were not holding her out. They were not pulling the ruse over everybody. She was fighting to get back out there. We just didn't know about the ankle injury. And the ankle injury is what actually kept Caitlin Clark out for the majority of the season. And that was never shared, which makes people, the way that was handled is going to make people skeptical going forward. And even Aaliyah Boston this year, it makes people skeptical when Aaliyah Boston's injury is not specifically, declared what it is. Is it a meniscus? What is it? Right? Like those things make people skeptical.
And this is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Last season, Clark was dealing with an ankle injury that kept her out for most of the year. The team never disclosed what it was. They let fans speculate, let media guess, created this will she or won't she drama around every game. The problem wasn't that they were being cautious with her health. The problem was Clark herself was fighting to get back on the court. She wanted to play. The team was the one holding her out, but they never explained why or what the actual injury was. Just vague references to her ankle. Then this season, Aaliyah Boston goes down with an injury. Again, no specifics. Is it a meniscus tear? Is it a sprain? What's the actual diagnosis and timeline? Radio silence from the organization. Now we're 4 games into the new season, and Caitlin Clark has a back issue that pops up in Game 1, keeps her out of practice before Game 4, and gets announced 90 minutes before tip-off. Same pattern, same lack of transparency. Same organizational approach that treats injury information like a state secret.
Because I strongly suspect that the WNBA will look into this. Let me put it that way. Because technically teams are supposed to submit their injury report 5 p.m. the night before in the time zone that the game is in. And Caitlin Clark didn't practice yesterday, according to Stephanie White. So she didn't practice because of the back issue. She should have been added to the status report, even if it was probable. And then, according to Coach White, Clark woke up with some back stiffness. Well, if that was the case, then she should have been added to the injury report then and submitted to the league. So the fact that it was never added and then announced out, that opens them up to scrutiny from the WNBA.
So why does this matter beyond just frustrating fans who bought tickets expecting to see Clark play? Because the WNBA has specific rules about injury reporting for a reason. It's about competitive integrity. It's about gambling regulations. It's about giving fans and media accurate information. When you skip practice because of a back injury, league rules say you add that player to the injury report as questionable or doubtful. You don't just ignore the requirement and hope nobody notices. You definitely don't wait until game day to suddenly announce the player is out. The Fever opened themselves up to league scrutiny here, not because Clark is injured, but because of how they handled the reporting requirements. There's a process, there are rules, and based on Stephanie White's own timeline of events, they didn't follow them.
Clark's injury.
Look at the big picture with CC. Is this part of like managing for the season?
No, absolutely not. There's no manage. She's healthy. We're not managing anything. This is just a back issue that we want to make sure we give the time to be ready.
That's a statement that is contradictory on its face from the head coach right there. You know, you're not managing anything. She's healthy. Then why is she out? If you're not managing it, I get what she might be trying to say, which is like, this was not we didn't look at the calendar beforehand and mark this down, and it was a pre-scheduled load management game. But you are by nature managing the injury if she's out of the game and she's not hurt, or I guess injured. There's a distinction between hurt and injured. She might be more hurt than injured, whatever the case may be. But that is a contradiction.
Now let's talk about what this actually means for Clark's health going forward, because that back issue from the season opener didn't just magically disappear. She went back to the locker room during that first game to get her back aligned. That was the official explanation at the time. Back problems don't resolve themselves in a week. They require management throughout a long season, and that's what makes Stephanie White's response so frustrating. When asked directly if this was part of managing Clark for the season, she said absolutely not. She's healthy. We're not managing anything. But that's exactly what they should be doing. They should be managing a back issue carefully throughout an 82-game season. They should be strategic about when she plays and when she sits. They should be limiting her minutes in blowouts. They should be keeping her fresh for the games that matter. Instead, the head coach is denying they're doing the smart thing while simultaneously pulling Clark out of games because of the exact issue that requires that kind of management. It's contradictory, it's confusing, and it makes people wonder what else they're not being straight about.
To maintain her, you have to keep her healthy through the course of the season. You have to manage her, which is why I don't like that response about Clark not being managed from head coach Stephanie White. But takeaways, number one, I wish the Fever were more transparent about injuries, because that would stop a lot of the conspiracies. Number two, I think the WNBA is well within its rights, and I would imagine they are curious about how this was handled. One would think they're going to look into it. Number three, I do think Caitlin Clark is okay in the general sense and not injured to the point where she's going to be out, and you can expect her to be back in the lineup in short order, most likely for the next game. Those are my takeaways about the entire situation.
Here's the thing about back injuries specifically. They're not like a rolled ankle or a jammed finger. Back stiffness, back spasms, back alignment issues, they tend to recur. They flare up when you're tired, when you've played too many minutes, when you're carrying too much of the offensive load. And think about what Caitlin Clark's role is on this team. She's the primary ball handler. She's initiating the offense on nearly every possession. She's playing heavy minutes. She's absorbing contact on drives. She's the focal point of every defensive game plan, which means she's getting physical attention all game long. That workload puts stress on your body, your back, your core. Those are the areas that break down first when you're being overworked. So when Clark goes back to the locker room in Game 1 for back alignment and then misses Game 4 because she woke up with back stiffness, those aren't isolated incidents. That's a pattern of an issue that's going to require active management, which brings us back to Stephanie White's response. We're not managing anything. She's healthy. That's not the answer you want to hear when your franchise player is dealing with a recurring back problem 4 games into the season.
All right, so I was just as surprised as everybody else when it was announced that Caitlin Clark would be out for the game against the Portland Fire. And when you're caught by surprise like that, you know, everything goes on fire up here. I'm going to tell you what I think, what I've learned, and what I suspect as a result of this.
And let's be clear about the timing of all this. The announcement came so late that fans who had already arrived at the arena, fans who had bought tickets specifically to see Caitlin Clark play, found out she was out when they were already in their seats. Was that intentional? Did the Fever wait to announce it because they knew it would impact ticket sales? That's the question everyone's asking. and the organization's track record on transparency doesn't exactly inspire confidence that they were being forthright here.
They were always going to win that game, whether Caitlin Clark was in the lineup or not. Running away from the fire at halftime, getting balanced scoring, 16 in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter from Kelsey Mitchell, 13 from Aaliyah Boston, 9 from Monique Billings, 7 from Maisha Hines-Allen off the bench. This is all with 6:21 left in the third quarter. But of course, the story isn't going to be about the Indiana Fever defeating an expansion team. The story is going to be about yet another Caitlin Clark injury and more scrutiny about the way that it's been communicated to the public and the fan base.
So here's where we are. The Indiana Fever beat the Portland Fire easily, which was always going to happen whether Clark played or not. Portland is an expansion team. They're not competitive yet. This was the perfect game to rest your star if you're being strategic about it. But the way it was handled created more problems than it solved. The WNBA is likely going to investigate whether the Fever violated injury reporting protocols. Fans are rightfully frustrated about the last-minute announcement and the lack of transparency. Media members are skeptical about every injury update going forward because the organization has established a pattern of withholding information. And most importantly, Caitlin Clark has a back issue that isn't going away. It showed up in Game 1. It kept her out of Game 4. It's going to be something that requires careful management for the rest of this season. The expectation is that Clark will be back in the lineup for the next game. She's not seriously injured in the sense of needing extended time off. But back stiffness doesn't just disappear because you took one game off. It's something that flares up. It's something that requires maintenance, treatment, and yes, management of her workload. Which means Stephanie White needs to get comfortable with the idea of actually managing her star players' minutes and availability, even if she doesn't want to call it that in press conferences. Because the alternative is watching that back issue get worse as the season grinds on. The Fever won this game. They got balanced scoring from Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Nalissa Smith, and Lexi Hull. They proved they can beat bad teams without their best player. But the controversy around how they handled this situation is going to linger. Transparency matters in professional sports. Following league rules matters. Being straight with your fans matters. And on all three of those fronts, the Indiana Fever failed spectacularly with their handling of Caitlin Clark's back injury. The league is going to want answers about why injury reporting protocols weren't followed. Fans are going to be skeptical of every injury announcement going forward. And Clark herself is going to have to deal with a recurring back issue that the organization seems unwilling to acknowledge requires active management. So was this just poor communication and bad timing? Or was it a calculated decision to maximize ticket sales by hiding injury information until the last possible moment? Based on how this organization has handled injuries in the past, I know which explanation seems more likely. The good news is Clark should be back soon. The bad news is this back issue isn't going away, and the Fever's approach to managing it and communicating about it hasn't inspired any confidence. Which means we're probably going to see this same drama play out again before the season is over.